kindness. When you get down to verse 41, you'll see this, that Jesus brings it all into perspective. He is calling us as his followers to be more generous and gracious than the law even demanded. By the way, grace is always greater, and grace always goes further. It just does. It does. Like, grace goes way further than all of this. Matter of fact, I want to say it this way, and I hope that you remember this. Grace is always better for us and them. Think about it. Grace is always better for us and them. Let me explain that. I said this over the past few weeks in this series on learning how to forgive and how to be a forgiving people, which Jesus has called us to be. Forgiveness doesn't just release the other person. You understand that? Like, when we decide to extend forgiveness, we're releasing ourselves as well. When we hold bitterness towards someone and we hold anger towards them and we refuse to forgive them, it not only hurts them, do you understand? That hurts us. It hurts us. And so grace and a gracious way of life is always better for us and for them. It just is. And that's what Jesus has called us to. And I know in a sense it's a high standard. And it's way easier said than done. Hey, look, it's way easier for me to preach than to live, right? Look, me too. But nonetheless, hear me, I'm not saying it. Jesus called us to this. Jesus did. And he talks about the whole thing of going the extra mile. Of course, we still sometimes use that phrase in our culture and in our language, and so we can kind of relate with it. And what you saw in the kids' video, it was true. You know, sometimes a Roman guard could say, "Hey, carry my equipment for me for a mile," and Jesus isn't just speaking to that one thing, although that was contextually relevant for his crowd at that time. But he's speaking to this whole thing of, hey, you know what? Even if someone insults you, go the extra mile for them. And I know that's hard to swallow, isn't it? But that's what Jesus is talking about. He's saying, hey, if someone offends you, if they insult you, even go the extra mile. Like, not only turn the other cheek, go the extra mile for them. Really, a better way to understand this is something that my dad always said growing up, and even when I worked for him, he used to say this. And he said, look, sometimes people can offend us. Sometimes people will get mad at us. Believe it or not, sometimes people get mad at me. Can you believe that? You know, like, I'm a pretty sweet guy, I think. But they'll get mad at us. They will do things that are offensive or insult us. My dad always said this. He goes, you know what? Kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness. And anyway, he would go on to say, you know, you never know, and hear me on this, you never know what someone may be going through. So they insulted you, they offended you. But we never know what may be going on. What I've often found in my life when I've dealt with difficult situations or had maybe felt offended or been insulted or belittled or taken shots at me, hear me on this. I've often found that there's usually a lot more going on in that person's life than I realized. Sometimes it's home stuff where things are really bad at home. Maybe the home they grew up in was really tough, or the home they're in now. Maybe there's stuff within their marriage or with their kids, you know. Maybe there's some loss that they're dealing with. We never know what someone's going through. But you know what happens when we apply kindness in those situations? More times than not, and you probably understand this, more times than not, a kind reaction to an insult will usually simmer things down, right? And by the way, that's not what someone's expecting either. Like, if someone yells at us and is mean, the natural reaction is to yell back and be mean, right? Well, maybe not for most of you. You look pretty spiritual, but the natural reaction is for me that I would want to yell back and be mean. But Jesus calls us to this higher standard, this different way of living, this level of kindness that, honestly, in our world, doesn't even make sense, does it? But nonetheless, Jesus is calling us to live in that way. You know, when you think about going the extra mile, there's this account in the Gospels as Jesus is approaching his crucifixion. Actually, he's been beaten to a pulp. I've shared this often here. You understand that when Jesus began to carry his cross up to the crucifixion site, which physically he couldn't do it, and I'll get to that in a moment. Most medical experts say that he was beaten so badly that Most likely his spinal cord was exposed. Can you imagine? By the way, hey, he took that for us, didn't he? And let me say this. He didn't take that for his friends. Do you understand? We were enemies of God. We had offended a holy God. We had insulted a holy God. And the God we had insulted and offended took that on for us. Think about it, okay? So he was beaten to a pulp. So this going the extra mile thing, one of the Roman guards would grab a guy named Simon of Cyrene and would tell him that he's going to carry the cross for Jesus because Jesus couldn't get it up there. Now, I know Jesus was 100% God, but he was also 100% man. And he was the perfect sacrifice for us. He didn't deserve it, but he took it. And so this man, Simon of Cyrene, would go that, in a sense, that extra mile and carry the cross for Jesus. And what's interesting is this. Jesus would hang on that cross for Simon. You understand that? He would hang on that cross for that Roman guard as well. He would hang on that cross for me and for you. All of us, in this sense, the same, people with a sin nature who had offended a holy God. And so Jesus would go there to that cross, having been insulted, blasphemed, having been taken advantage of, having been beaten, having been, people had spit in his face, like you name it. I would say they, but hear me. You name it, we did it. We did it to a holy God. But he would go there and he would give his life for people who had offended and insulted him and would die and shed his blood for us. In a sense, he would give us his cheek forever. Do you understand that? Look at me. He would turn the other cheek for us. Look, no one else can call us to the standard, but I'm going to say this. Jesus can call us to it. Can he?